Hey guys, welcome to another week of the Monday Huddle, where we will show you tricks, tips, ideas to beat your Monday and dominate your week. I'm G. I'm Derek. So here we go with another topic for you to make you mo better.
This one's good.
Yeah, this one is good.
I like this one. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah. So talk to us.
So before we start, we are going to have some pronunciations we are not trying to make fun. I promise we're going to do the best that we can do. And one of the tips that I'm going to use to help my pronunciation is actually from Joe Coy. Joe Coy, anybody knows, is a comedian, and he does these impersonations of like Koreans and Chinese, and one of the things he talks about is his Japanese pronunciation. He was like, Japanese man from diaphragm. And so I'm going to do my best Japanese impersonations as we're trying to give you these tips. It's actually 7 tips to overcome laziness, right? As you noticed before, if you are a longtime listener, viewer of this podcast, this YouTube channel, then you know that we started out pulling these quotes from all over the world. Pastors, entertainers, people that are alive, people that are dead. Like, we wanted to provide you a variety of references because it's not just G and Derek.
That's right.
We have other people that we found that aspire to, how do we get over this Monday hump? How do we move closer to who we want to be and the things that we want to do? And so we know in order to overcome, it requires some effort. Effort requires work, and you can't have effort and work if you are lazy.
That's right.
And so we're talking about the 7 techniques, 7 Japanese techniques. We found this on social media to overcome laziness. G is going to kick us out with number 1.
So listen, I love Asian culture, right? They're so respectful, they're so honoring and honorable. I love the Japanese culture. I trained judo for like 10 years, right? I have a brown belt in judo. I would love to go to Japan. And so I found some traditions that the Japanese culture, they hold on to, and it's like this samurai in the picture, and he's just kind of like, listen, these are ways that you can overcome a level of laziness, right? And so number 1, I'm going to try my best, as Derek said, Ikigai.
Ooh, that was nice.
Was that good?
I think so, but I'm not Japanese.
Okay. So it means having purpose in life, the reason you wake up each morning. And then it has 4 rules that help us in this. Number 1, do what you love. Number 2, do what you're good at. Number 3, do what the world needs. And number 4, do what you can be paid for. That's powerful.
That's intense.
Yeah. And so I love these tips because it helps us to do some of the things that we love to do, number 1, that we're going to get paid to do. And in American culture, I've heard this, when you do what you love, you're not working.
Not a day in your life.
Yeah. And so that's a part of overcoming some of your laziness. Some of the things that you may be studying, some of the places that you show up to every day, some of the things that you intentionally go to that you dislike. And so what do we do when we dislike where we're going? We don't want to go back.
We don't.
When we're studying something that we're not really interested in, what do? We don't give it the attention.
Yeah.
And so number 1, listen, Ikigai.
Ikigai.
It means having a purpose in life, the reason you wake up each morning.
Another reason that I like this concept, and I know we're not going to be able to stay on any of these for any significant time because we have 7 and we got a time limit that we're usually trying to keep you guys on. But one of the reasons I love this is because these 4 steps, they almost check each other, right? So the first one being do what you love, and then the other one is do what you're good at. Well, I know people who love things, but they're not good at it, right? And I know some stuff that people are good at, but they don't love it. A perfect example is a basketball player that won the NBA championship. He was like, I actually didn't want to play basketball. I just happened to be good at it. So he doesn't really love it. He's just good at it. So now we're talking about, what are you good at? What do you love? What does the world need, right? Because sometimes we love things and we're good at it, but it's not really a market for it. And then, what can you get paid for?
Yeah.
And I think when we're talking about overcoming laziness, I know the things that I love to do, that I'm good at, that the world needs, and I can make money for, I get up every single day for those.
Yeah, that's right. That's a motivator.
Yeah.
It's something that you're in the fight. You're fighting every day for this thing that you know is going to bring home the bacon. It's going to provide for your family, create legacy, all of these things. And so that's number one. Go for number two.
Number two is Kaizen with diaphragm.
Yes.
I think that's what it is. Here we go. It means focusing on small improvements every single day, trying to become 1% better every day. There's a story about this cycling team. And they were the worst cycling team, two of their friends. They never placed, they never did anything. And they hired this coach. And the coach was trying to figure out what areas could we improve 1% every single day. And so they were looking at the pillows that they were sleeping on, the beds they were sleeping on, the clothes that they were wearing, the shoes they were wearing, the bikes they were riding. And they were like, how do we get the bikes just 1 ounce lighter? And how do we get the pillows 1 pound? Like they were like just looking at these 1% things. And over time, all of those 1% turned into results. And so they went from being the worst team to not the last team to an average team over the years. And they eventually end up winning Tour de France from being the worst team. And they asked them how they did it. They said 1% a day.
That's
1%
so
a day. And so when we're thinking about these changes, oftentimes we don't make the changes, or we become overwhelmed by the changes because they seem so big. How do I become a millionaire, right? How do I get out of debt? How do I purchase a home? How do I stay married for 50 years? How do I raise great kids? How do I lose 50 pounds? We take on these big things, and because they're so large, we don't take those steps toward achieving those goals. But what we're saying today, Kaizen with diaphragm. Kaizen, 1% at a time.
Well, small wins lead to big wins.
Ooh,
right?
That's nice.
This is how we live our life. We have to get to a place where we allow these little small wins that we're thinking, oh, they're just small wins, they're just small wins. No, listen, little win here, little win there. I went to a 7-Eleven one time, right?
Yeah.
And this 7-Eleven, they were like, listen, you got to spend more than $5 if you're gonna use your debit card. And so I was like, I just want to buy the soda, right?
Yeah.
And so they were like, well, if you're gonna use your debit card, you have to make a $5 or greater purchase.
Yeah.
And so I went and got some candy, and I was like, man, listen, can you just spot me a couple of pennies? And the lady said this. She said, penny, 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 dollar.
It adds up.
Yeah. So I thought to myself, I was like, you got it. Listen, I'm going to gladly pay for the tip you gave me.
Yeah.
But I'm mad that I got to pay the $5. But it
yeah.
made so much sense, and it's something that I hold on to now because I realize that oftentimes we walk by a penny on the ground and we don't pick it up.
At all.
Penny, 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 dollar.
Yeah.
Small wins lead to big wins.
Dude, that's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to keep it moving. G, hit us with number 3.
Okay. Number 3 is Shoshin.
Shoshin.
Shoshin. Right?
That was nice.
And it is in the beginner's mindset, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are a few. Ooh, I love that. And so from this, we can gather an understanding that oftentimes everybody wants to be an expert.
Yeah.
COVID proved that nobody's an expert in this.
Not one.
Yeah. And so when we can enter into something with a beginner's mindset, then we become a sponge.
Yeah.
Right? When we go to a class and we don't know anything that is going to be taught in that class, we go in with a beginner's mindset.
Everything.
Right?
Yeah.
You played golf.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you first went out there, you were like a beginner mindset. You were like watching people stroke.
Yeah.
You were watching what clubs they use.
Yeah.
You were watching the culture. You were keeping an eye on everything. But how long you been golfing now?
About 20 years.
Right? So now, if you're not careful, you could get out there and be like, I don't need to watch anybody else's stroke. I just need to watch mine. I got to make sure. And so we got to not lose that learner's mindset.
Yeah.
And so that's this principle.
Yeah.
Shoshin.
Yeah, and I like the idea of like when you consider everything, it's like this concept of like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And so it's like as we move from beginner to expert, it's like how do we become knowledgeable in the thing that we're interested in the most, but keep that childlike interest, right? It's like one of the greatest books that I love quoting said, in order to get where you want to go, you have to take the mindset of a child.
Yeah.
You have to approach it like a kid,
That's
right? And these kids, they just ask like, why? Why that? What's that? Why that? Why do you do that? And so like I think it's talking about this expert mentality, but with this beginner vibe of like considering everything, and the more you know, you realize you don't know as much as you thought you do. And one of the things that I love about this is that as someone that's been living just a few years, right, I look back at people who haven't been living as long, and I'm looking at them like, man, you think you know it all. You think you got it all put together, man. You just keep on living. Like, life has this weird knack of humbling people. And so I like this.
Yeah, I saw an image recently, and on the image it had an individual. It was just kind of like a progression, right? And as the person got older, it showed less of the brain. And so when you're young, it showed a full brain, and it was just kind of like, when you're young, you think you know everything. But the older that you get and the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And so the progression wasn't like small brain, larger, larger. It was like big brain, smaller, 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 and it actually got to nothing. Yeah, and so with this whole childlike thing, a child, when you have that faith or that mindset of a child, you show up to things and you're not thinking where the food is going to come from, where the light, where the protection, where the security is. They jump out there. How oftentimes we don't do things because we're afraid of the failure part of it, right?
Gosh,
and so, man, it's so good. I think being able to have that child mindset and that beginner posture of saying, I always have to learn.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we got to keep it going. There we go. All right. Number 4, Hara Hashibu. Hara Hashibu.
You did good.
Hara Hashibu. By the way, if we're massacring these, if we're killing these, and not killing it in a good way, tell us how we need to pronounce it. I guess I could go to like Google Translate and they can say it for me, but I want to hear how you all pronounce it. This means to stop eating after you're 80% full. Because if you eat too much, you're more likely to be lazy. You know, I was watching the National Geographic, and they talk about these lions that are hungry. They move differently than the lions that are full. When after the lions they eat, you find them under a shade tree, laying out, licking their paws and snuggling, and they doing all this stuff. And then you see the hungry lions that are up, and the ears are up, and the tails are moving. And what we're not saying is don't eat. That's not what we're not saying. We're just saying there's something about having eaten but also still being hungry, right? It's like when you achieve success but you know there's so much more to do, and so it's like, go ahead, take that win, consume that victory, but know that tomorrow we back at it again, right? And so I think this concept of overcoming laziness, right, because that's what we're talking about today. How do we overcome lazy? Well, oftentimes lazy, when you eat too much, right, and you get full, you want to sit. We call that itis. We call it the itis, right? It's like we done eat so much. You like, man, listen, I gotta lay down. That's where you take them shoes off, you unbuckle that belt, right? And so we don't want people to take that posture when it comes to not only Mondays, but success in general, right? We want you to achieve, to push, to press forward, to get the thing, but we don't want you to be so full of yourself and so full of success that you become lazy. We want you to get just enough to be like, that tastes good, I want some more.
That's right. Well, you know, you're supposed to eat in smaller portions. I think you're supposed to eat like 5 meals a day.
Smaller meals instead of the big ones?
Yeah, small portions, 5 meals a day. And you're thinking like 5 meals, I'm good with the 3 I eat. Why? Because we're like,
big meals,
right? I can't eat during, like, if I eat a big meal during lunch, I'm done for the rest of the day.
It's a wrap.
Yeah. And so I think being able to understand your body as well. I know that when I eat too much, I'm going to gain weight. And I know when I have gotten too big, when I start snoring. That's my measuring stick. When my wife says, man, you snored last night, I know that I got to get back on the right path.
I know that. Okay, all right.
And so I think that being able to monitor your health, right? Allowing that to be a part of your system of taking care of yourself. Oftentimes, we want to take care of a certain portion of our life, right? But if you can't keep up with the pace of your life, right? If you got to get on a plane on Monday, come back home Wednesday, do a speech or presentation Wednesday night, jump back on a plane on Thursday and be gone. Listen, your body has to be able to keep the pace of the schedule and the demands of it. Absolutely. You can't ask for more if you can't keep up with the demands of where you're at.
Yeah, and to me, when you talk about all the other areas of your life impacting or affecting the other, if we go back to the lions, and it's like, well, they were just trying to eat, right? Well, now they're lazy and they're full, and that's going to impact how they can defend, how they can fight, how they can move and travel. And it's the same with us. Sometimes we may think the food that we eat doesn't impact any other thing, but Jesus said, food, when I eat and I get full and I'm starting to gain weight, it impacts the way that I sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And for me, when I begin to travel a lot, it impacts the food that I eat and how I travel and the sleep and connecting with my wife and kids. And so it's very important to understand that when we stay hungry, staying hungry means that we don't get so full of success and victory that it makes us complacent and content. It means that we get just enough to make sure we're moving on to the next place.
That's right. That's right. So, when I look at my schedule, and I think of the demand on it, right? I think to myself, like, how am I going to be able to accomplish that? The only way that I'm going to be able to accomplish it is to be able to ensure that I have parameters.
Okay.
And eating is a parameter thing.
Yeah.
Right? Self-discipline. My daughter made
That's
me
good.
breakfast this morning, and she was like, Dad, you want 2 croissants or you want 1? And I wanted 1. Well, I wanted 2, but I grabbed 1, right? And she was like, Dad, you sure you don't want the other one? I said, listen, I want the other one, but I don't need the other one. I got to be disciplined.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And so I think that if we can practice self-discipline, and one of those things is being able to say no when you have to.
Yeah.
And one of the fasting does something amazing for you.
Yeah.
Right? It does get you connected closer to God, but it also resets your body. And
physically.
oftentimes,
Yes.
physically it resets you.
Yeah.
And so if you can't say no, and you're always saying yes, then you got to think from a standpoint of, if I say no to my body, then I'm saying yes to unhealthy habits.
Listen, this is this concept that we talked about in the last episode about this sense of losing in order to gain. I know we're using food as an example right now, but how much of us are getting full on people? Or how much of us are getting full on social media and getting caught up in likes and shares? Like how much of us, like we're ingesting all of these things and we don't leave space for anything else? And I know for me, like physically, my eyes hurt when I look at my phone too long, or when I look at my laptop too long, or like there are times when I come home and my wife wants to talk, and I'm so full because I've been talking all day and I've been talking to all the people that I don't have any room to consume her. And so I know we're talking about food, but really it's talking about what are these things that we're filling our lives with that are making us unable to perform in all these other areas. We want to make sure that when it comes to that we're not feeling ourselves so much on all these things that it doesn't leave us with the ability to move and to operate in other areas.
That's right.
See, we gotta keep moving.
All right, here we go. So this other one is Shinrin Yoku.
Ooh, do the Japanese roll their R's?
Man, I don't know, but
That
that's
Puerto
like
Rican came
that's
out
like
strong,
Puerto
boy.
Rican.
That guy, he couldn't even hold it back. It came out. He said,
All right, and so Shinrin is
he can't even help it.
it means
Okay.
forest, and Yoku means bath, right?
okay.
So it basically means that one should spend more time with nature.
Okay.
So one thing that my wife has been doing more of is that she goes outside barefooted, and she says, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to do some grounding. Right? Being one with the earth, with the creation, right, of the heavens on the earth. From the dust we came, to the dust we return, and there's an empowering when we are a part of God's creation, right? There's something that you feel empowered by when you're by the water. When you look at water, right, you feel empowered, but it's also a place of meditation, a place of peace, right? When you feel the wind blowing, it's kind of like this refreshing, right? Because it's come pressing against your flesh, and you feel this thing, right? It touches all of your senses. You can hear it, you can feel it, you can see it. It's amazing. And so to come against some of your laziness, you have to come from being inside and enjoy what's going on outside. Let's, for a moment, look at all of the attributes of depression.
Okay.
All right? Depression forces you to be up in the bed with the blinds closed, dark, in a dark space, alone. Right? Phone silenced or off, right? And so oftentimes what happens is that you're not depressed, you just put yourself in a depressive atmosphere.
Okay.
And so now you're feeling a certain way you're not depressed because the moment you get up, you're rocking, right?
Yeah.
But when you put yourself in a place, it almost seems like you bring yourself down and you don't give yourself an opportunity to thrive. Nobody thrives in the dark. Nobody thrives when they're alone. Nobody thrives when they seclude themselves from other people. Actually, you make yourself more vulnerable to the lions that you were talking about earlier, because there are lions in life that are trying to devour you.
Don't. You know, with the church, he said, you got some lions in your life. Yeah, you know, the reason I like this, right, because it's talking about forced bath. Like those two words meaning, like, to me, the bath means to also submerge yourself, to immerse yourself. And I think sometimes people, they put, they kind of dabble in some things, but it's like we can't spend all of this time in technology and processed foods and in these environments with blue light and all this stuff and just kind of put a little dabble back into nature. And I don't even want to make this not literal. Like, I'm not even trying to make this a metaphor. I'm literally saying go outside.
Go outside.
I'm not even trying to make it deep. I'm saying I literally want you to take your shoes off and touch the grass, right? And talk about how people that spend more time in the sun, in the water, on the beach. I think there was a study that said people that spend more time around blue water have less depression and anxiety. And talk about people that are in fresh air environments, how not only does their body and their cells respond differently to it, but when you get fresh air in your lungs, it cleans out your blood. And when your blood is clean, it cleanses out your brain. And when you're able to think clearly, you become more ambitious and you get more excited. And so I'm not trying to even make it deep. I'm literally saying go outside. There's no transfer, there's no metaphor, it's saying rainforest bath. That means go submerge, immerse yourself in some green, some plants, put your hand in some dirt, take your shoes off, like go on a walk, breathe in the air. There's this meditative technique that talks about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's like, what are 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can taste, 1 thing. Like it's literally asking you to tap into the outside environment. That's the whole point. There's nothing else that we want to say in order to overcome laziness, this idea of being trapped inside in this room, not doing anything, low ambition, high anxiety, high depression. We're literally just saying, the Japanese are saying, go outside.
Yeah, go outside. What's
That's it. All right, here we go. We got wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi. This means that instead of perfection, one should find beauty in imperfection. I was looking at this example of this pot. And the pot, they actually fracture the pot on purpose. And they fill in the fractures with this gold liquid. And they're saying it's actually the fracture that makes the pot valuable. Wow. And so when we think about this perfection or this pursuit of perfection, it's like, well, not only is no one perfect, but no one will ever be perfect. And if I could be real churchy on just real quick, and say there was only one that arrived at perfection. And so I think the pursuit of perfection allows us to kind of miss out, or it makes us miss out on these little quirks that make us individually who we are, and it makes us uniquely human.
Yeah, and so I realize organizationally, sometimes we are thriving for this perfection, right? And we carry this pressure.
Yeah.
And I realize that there are some times where you have to allow imperfection for you to have some solid transitions.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah? Because sometimes when you're putting so much pressure on individuals, you're at this place where you're now performing.
Yeah.
Right? And so now you're frustrating the people around you. Sometimes you have to allow a spot to be empty for a moment so that you can get the right person in.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to allow a season of being tight in your finances so that then you can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that trying to be perfect puts this pressure that is not something that's even reasonable, right? You can try to be perfect at moments, but don't allow imperfection to bring you to a place where now you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think that imperfection is cool. I'm going to give you a great example of what some people would consider imperfection.
Okay.
A mom that's had several babies.
Okay.
Has stretch marks on their belly.
Yeah.
Some people will call them tiger stripes. I call them beauty marks.
Hey.
They provided a child.
Yeah.
Right? My wife provided 4 beautiful children to me. Now, there may be times where I'm not saying she, but there are some ladies that would be embarrassed, they cover it up and all of that stuff. And I'm saying, listen, that imperfection gave life to 4 beautiful children. 4 children that belong to me, that I have a blessing to steward, right? And so some people look at that as imperfection. Listen, I look at it as perfect.
Yeah, I love that. And then you have all these pieces of furniture that have these little nicks in the wood and, you know, all this stuff. I think all they're saying to say is that people are trying to be perfect.
That's right.
And in one of our earlier episodes, G talked about this influence and this pressure. And some of it we put on ourselves. Some of it other people put on us. Some of it comes from the environment. There's so many different things that we feel the need to perform, or the pressure that's put on by these other things. But what we're saying is breathe.
Yeah.
One of the things to overcome laziness is oftentimes people feel like I got to do nothing or I got to be perfect. And there's so much space in between. And there's so much beauty in between. So what does it look like to appreciate the mistakes along the way?
That's right.
I think that's this concept of wabi sabi. It's like, how can we use those imperfections?
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
What? How do we use this process? Is she still talking? How do we use this process of overcoming laziness, appreciating the imperfections along the way? Gee, we gotta keep going, man.
All right, so this last one is ganbaru. Ganbaru. And it means that one should be patient and do the best possible. It kind of coincides with the last one that we were talking about, right?
Yep.
And so you want to do your best possible, right? And so we want to be of excellence.
Yeah.
We use this terminology often, and we say, man, we just want to operate in excellence. This is how I define excellence: doing the best with what you have until you could do better. All right?
That's nice.
And so when you have your dreads, right? They didn't always look as amazing as they look right now.
No. I went through a rough stage.
There was a season that there were like little nubs, right? And I'm sure you were tempted and cutting it off. You're like, what I look. See, my hair, it's the same thing. If it's too short, great. If it's really short, great. But there's this in-between stage that my hair would just poke straight out, right? And so it's got to be long or it's got to be short. The in-between just makes it look pokey and makes it look horrible. And so we don't like those in-between stages, right? But you can't have growth unless you have that in-between space.
Which is true.
Yeah, and transition is not a location, it's not a destination. You're on the way to something, and when you're doing your best, sometimes you got to fail.
Yeah.
Failing is not bad, y'all. Listen to me. If you failed, great. Now you know what not to do.
Yeah.
Right? And so you are in a learning season so that you can get to the place of doing your best. And so I love this because there are times where I felt like, man, I am not able to give my best right now.
Yeah.
Not realizing that I'm in a process, and the process is leading me to do my best. We want to do our best, but as we're getting there, enjoy that process so that you can knock it out of the park. Listen, you don't know how to be consistent if you don't know what inconsistency looks like.
Dr. King said, I want you to fly. But if you can't fly, I want you to run. And if you can't run, I want you to crawl. No, it was I want you to fly. If you can't fly, I want you to run. If you can't run, I want you to walk. If you can't walk, I want you to crawl. But the whole point is to continue to move forward.
Yeah, that's
right. And so we're talking about this process, being patient with yourself along the way. If you don't give yourself grace, if you're not patient, then we can't expect other people to do it for us. So we got to do it for ourselves.
That's right. So listen, this Monday Huddle is a little bit longer than all of the previous ones, but we're helping you break from being lazy. All of us have battled it. All of us at moments still have to battle it. But here were the tips for today to help you overcome those things for you to be the best version of yourself. I'm G.
I'm Derek.
Catch you next week.